First, we're going to take a look, as always, as what happens with global energy commodities. Brent crude was down by 73 basis points, but actually it's been holding up really well, particularly after the International Energy Agency indicated that next year demand would be robust on global oil markets. And of course, news coming out of major central banks around the world, including the Fed and European Central Bank, is that rate cuts might stop next year, and actually rates may go down. So markets clearly reacted well to that, even though at the close of Friday, prices were down on global oil markets. Natural gas held up pretty well, but RBOB gasoline also down. Let's take a look at what's happening in Nigeria equities markets. Well, at the end of closing on Friday, the NGX All Share Index closed down at 9 basis points. Quite a lot of sell-off and profit taking there, especially in banking stocks. All Share Index ended the week at 17,389.23 points. Modest deal value at 6.5 billion, and of course, equity capitalization at 39.6 trillion naira. In Europe, Euro Stoxx 600 closed up by 9 basis points as well, actually, but a mixed picture across all the other major indices in Europe. The FTSE All Share Index closed down at 90 basis points, whilst the IBEX 35 in Spain also closed down, but Paris and Germany held up pretty well at the end of the week. Now let's take a look at Wall Street. Well, good picture all around for the Wall Street's major indices. The Dow Industrial Index, S&P 500 and NASDAQ Composite Index all closed the week up, although Dow Jones was fairly muted. Not so bullish there to the end of the week, but the rate moves by the Fed, the European Central Bank, and of course the Bank of England all point positive signaling for rate hikes or rate slumps in the early half of 2024. Now, my top picks for this week. Let's take a look. So, business topics. First is Argentina. New libertarian president there, President Javier Milei, is providing some shock therapy to the Argentinian economy. It says that it's going to devalue the peso, the local currency, by 54% in the first batch of shock measures. And the new economy minister, Caputo, says this is part of measure to tackle triple-digit inflation. Argentina has been facing about 150% inflation, as well as a complete depletion of its external reserves. In fact, the country's external reserves are in the red. It's one of the major grain producers around the world. And the new president says that the interest rate, the exchange rate, has been kept artificially high for many, many years due to strict capital control. So shock therapy in Argentina, things are going to get notably worse before they get better. Flutterwave, Pan-African payments platform, is making a broad sweep of its global footprint with the acquisition of 30 new licenses in the North American market, particularly in the US, with acquisitions of state licenses in places like Maryland, Arizona, Georgia. It's planning to capture the remittance market, particularly from members of the African diaspora overseas. It's also made significant inroads into the African market with license acquisitions in places like Rwanda, and even partnerships with Indian firms as far as Southeast Asia. Nigeria's government has removed VAT, and customs duty on cooking gas, also known as liquefied petroleum gas. About 40% of the country's cooking gas comes from the Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas Company, NLNG, and the remainder is generally imported from abroad. So this is good news for importers, because this not only covers the gas itself, but also covers gas cylinders, equipment, and other component parts. And this is meant to help boost the supply of LPG and encourage LPG uptake in the economy. So good news there for users of LPG in the Nigerian market. Well, COP28 ended on quite a controversial note, as a draft agreement agreed to by 100 countries involved in those discussions dropped the phase out of fossil fuels. Now, small island states who are mostly affected by climate change were not too thrilled at this. And for the first time in history, they wanted to see a global commitment to the phasing out of fossil fuels. But this draft agreement actually stopped short of mentioning that fossil fuels will be phased out, but called on countries to ensure that they pushed and moved towards decarbonization. As we know, fossil fuel burning accounts for 75% of global emissions. So interesting end to deliberations of 2 weeks there at COP28. And that's it for my business topics.